Hello, and as you can see behind me and around me, I'm well on the way to creating the formal Boxwood Parterre at the front of the cottage. And I've used the word boxwood because it's recognised internationally. In England, we just refer to these plants as box plants. Buxus sempervirens. It's an ideal plant for creating parterres, low hedges, and indeed for topiary. And if you want to know how I created these two topiary specimens, have a look at my channel because I did a video on it. I had a lot of fun, and I'll put the link at the end of this video. And I've created several of these formal boxwood parterres over the years. So in this video, I'm going to share with you my top 10 tips for how to design a formal boxwood parterre. This is part 1, design and planning. Part 2 will be buying the plants, planting them out and maintaining the parterre going forwards. And I've given this matter quite a lot of consideration and thought, and I've written out my top 10 tips on a piece of paper here, but I'll type those in the description box below this video, and you are welcome to copy and paste and print them, and I hope you find them useful. Number 1, decide that you definitely want a parterre. Remember that it will take some maintenance over the year. Some people have to trim these twice a year, and if you go for quite an ambitious plan and an ambitious parterre with lots of winding hedges, it will take quite a lot of time and effort to trim it. So give it quite a lot of thought and consideration. And if, when you've watched the whole of this video, you still want to do it, go ahead, because I find them wonderful and very rewarding. I'm a little bit obsessed with my box plants, if I'm honest. So number 1, make a decision that you're definitely going to do it. Tip number 2 is clear the ground. As you can see, I've already done here. It makes it much easier to visualize and imagine what the finished parterre will be like if you've cleared all the extraneous plants. I've already cleared a huge rose from this corner and a big hydrangea from there, and lots of other plants that were filling this space. Now it's empty, I can see what I'm dealing with. And still on tip number 2, when you've cleared it, measure it, measure the perimeter. You need to measure the outer edge, even if it's irregular shaped, you need to do this. And when you've measured it, draw it to scale on a piece of paper. And when you've drawn it, divide the drawing into equal squares, which represent 30 centimeters. And I'll tell you why I've chosen 30 centimeters in a few moments. Number 3 is give a lot of care and thought and time and consideration to the context of your individual plot. I'll tell you what I mean by that. For example, I've got 2 windows here on the front of the cottage, and I want to be able to stand inside the cottage and look out and enjoy the parterre from that point of view. So that's one of the contexts of my plot. Consider the topography of the ground. Mine is lovely and flat. If yours is sloping, you need to think about that, because if you put gravel on top, the gravel over the years will just run down to the bottom. So you might need to think of a way of banking it up or terracing it. Or you might have some personal factors to consider. For example, these 2 box topiary plants, I've been looking after these for at least 10 years now, and they've always been in pots. So I'd like to get those in the ground because I think it'll do them the world of good. Think about the different views from all over, from down there in the garden as you walk past up the lane, and as I've already said, the views from the cottage windows. And that context from lots of different perspectives will inform the design that you go for. Number 4 is choose the type of plant you're going to use. Now, I've already told you that I am indeed going to use Buxus sempervirens, boxwood or box plant. But you're not limited to boxwood. You can make a parterre out of several different species of plant. Some people use rosemary, other people use yew or ilex, some of the holly plants. And indeed, at this moment in time, it might be a good idea to choose an alternative to boxwood, or even a mix of different plants, because unfortunately boxwood in the UK at the moment, and possibly in other parts of Europe and the world, is suffering from a couple of disease conditions, namely box blight and box tree caterpillar, and there isn't really a cure for it. And once you've got it in your stock, it can spread throughout and kill the whole thing dead. But if you want to know about the alternatives to box plants, the RHS, the Royal Horticultural Society, has done a really useful article on the alternatives, and I'll put the link to that in the description box below this video. So that's number 4, choose your plant. I've already decided to go with boxwood I'm going to take the risk, but I am going to take some mitigation strategies, and hopefully over the coming years some scientist somewhere will come up with a cure or a treatment for both box blight and box tree caterpillar. Number 5 is sit down at your computer, get lots of books out and look at lots of different images of parterres. There's thousands of different designs you could choose from. I went on Google and I put in formal parterres and I clicked images and it came up with lots of different pictures. And my tip is to choose something which you see, which moves you, which has an effect on you inside. Number 6 now. When you've spent hours looking at images on the internet or flicked through books or even visited gardens, get your chart, your map, your drawing of your plot and play around with lots of different ideas. Think outside the box, excuse the pun, be adventurous, be ambitious. It might be that what you originally thought would look nice has evolved into something completely different. For example, I was originally thinking about a series of squares here, and now I'm thinking about a diagonal lattice. You might be thinking of curves or circles or irregular shapes or something which mirrors the edge of a path or runs round the edge of the plot, or even one of those knot gardens where the hedges appear to run over and under each other like a piece of string. And I did an eternal knot garden previously and it was a great effect. It did take a little bit longer, and once you have got quite a few ideas down on paper, sleep on it. Don't rush into a design idea because you're going to be living with this for years to come. Sleep on it, come back to it. Be prepared to discard an idea that you thought was brilliant yesterday because it's been replaced by a better idea today. Number 7. Be mindful of the spacing of your plants. For example, box plants. They need to be planted at least 9 inches apart. Don't be tempted to shove them all together because it's counterproductive. If you think about it, the top of a hedge is going to be 30 centimetres wide, and that's why I advise you to divide your plan, your drawing, into 30 centimetre squares. Because by doing that, when you start drawing with your green felt tip pen, you can see how much of the space each hedge is going to take up. But more importantly, how much space is left in between. Because with a box parterre, the space in between is just as important as the hedge itself for several reasons. Number 1, you've got to allow light to get in to the bottom of the hedge. So if they're too close together, you stop the light getting through. Number 2, you've got to have space in between for maintenance. You've got to be able to step over and get access for clipping and picking weeds out. Number 3, the plants need root space. You're going to be planting new plants into new soil and they need room to grow. It's no good if they're crammed up close together. Don't be fooled into thinking by shoving them close together you'll get the effect sooner. It is counterproductive. Number 8 is something I've already alluded to. Don't be tempted when you're buying plants to go for bigger ones because you think it'll get there sooner. Play the long game. This is a game of patience. Enjoy the process. Watch it grow and mature. And within 5 years, you'll have a lovely boxwood parterre. Number 9 is about counting how many plants you need. How do you know how many you need when you've got a design this big? That's what your piece of paper is for. And that's why I told you to divide it in 30 centimetre squares. If you think about it, if the hedge is going to end up 30 centimetres wide at the top when you trim it, it needs a 30 centimetre width at the bottom. So if you look at your plan and you look at the green line which you've drawn, which represents the finished hedge, you can go along that line with the pen and you can mark a little cross every 9 inches or so, and that will help you to count the number of plants you need to buy. And another little tip, if you're buying box plants in bulk, say several hundred of them, try and do it in the winter time because then you can buy bare root plants. These are plants which are in their dormancy and you can buy them a lot cheaper. The caveat is, of course, if you are buying bare root plants, prepare in advance so that when they arrive you can give them a good soaking and get them straight in the ground, because the last thing you want is bare root plants sitting around drying out. And I would say buy 2 or 3 extras as spares because some might arrive damaged. You can always plant them into a border somewhere else in the garden and create box balls or box pyramids. They'll never be wasted. And so finally, Number 10 now, when you've got this far, when you've got a few designs down on paper, a short list of designs that you want to consider, come to your plot and stake it out. If it's a simple geometric shape, like mine, which is a rectangle, you can get canes, and you can get a big ball of twine, and you can connect the canes where the hedge is going to be. Then you can step back and have a look at it. If it's not geometric and square and regular like mine, in other words, if you're going for a curved, circular, irregular design, get a bucket of sand and sprinkle it where the hedges are going to be. Then step back and have a look at it so that you can see the big picture. And don't forget to look at it from lots of different angles and possibly even different heights. And at this stage, you'll be ready for what I think is one of the most exciting parts of all, getting the plants in the ground. So in part 2, I'll tell you a little bit more about how I chose and ordered and purchased my plants online. I'll demonstrate how to plant them through the weed fabric. I'll show you the gravel going down on top because that will really make the whole thing pop. And I'll also share with you some useful, helpful hints and tips for the ongoing maintenance of your formal boxwood parterre. I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it informative. Please do subscribe to my channel if you haven't already done so, and hit the notifications bell. Also, like the video below because it really does help me get it promoted with YouTube. Good luck with your parterre, and I'll see you soon.